like the rates dropped in 2020, refinance, reset the clock, and now your next house can essentially be paid for by your first house, which we actually have done a cash out refi for one of our properties in the past. And it did pay for a house that we bought, ended up buying in Madison, Wisconsin in 2020. So it wasn't hard. Both of them were rentals. But again, the cost of the house wasn't so large that it threw off I call it California, you have higher incomes than the rest of than most of the US, right? So if you have a high enough income and you're buying out of state, it's not as hard. Now buying a house in San Diego, we still rent. We've been renting for 6 years. So I don't want to have a huge mortgage and a requirement to pay, 7,000 to 10,000 a month. So our rent right now is 4,300. And to me, that's amazing for being in La Jolla. So.
Oh, oh yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's just, we don't need to own anything here because, our costs are kind of offset. Our expenses are offset by someone else paying our mortgage and building our wealth that way.
It's cool because Jen and I are in the same position. It's nice. I don't have to tell you who Jen is.
I
But
know.
Jen
Yeah.
and I are
Hi, Jen.
Yeah. She's out working, making me money right now.
Oh, yeah.
So she's
Your baby mama's working hard.
that's right. Yeah. But we're in the same position where it's like, since we moved to Napa Valley, but we rent up here and our rent's pretty similar to yours. And everybody's like that, Josh from Wisconsin, he's like, that's crazy that you're paying that much in rent. But given where I live, I'm pretty okay with it. And then to the cost to buy would have been so much more. We even talked to our CPA and he just said, when there's that big a difference between renting and owning, like the equity that you would gain by owning isn't really worth it. Like you could just take that extra money and invest
And
it
I
and
think
make
that's
more
such
money.
a really good point because everyone, yeah, especially when you're in California, they're like, oh, when are you going to buy a house? Especially when they hear you buying elsewhere. And it's like, maybe never, and they think you're crazy, but it's like, well, if you bought something here, how much more would you have to work just to say you own it, versus you're still living in the area that you want to. Seattle, it made sense to buy just because the rents were going up so much with Amazon, Microsoft, Google, everything there, that tech money really raised the cost of living. So for us, it was a good move, just on housing expenses, but it's really hard to say that in Southern California, most of California.
So that Seattle house you bought for 600,000, you said?
Yes, that one was about 630 and it only has one bathroom.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious, like if you were to sell it today, what would it go for?
So, at the height of the market, it was like 1.1, 1.2. I think now, with some of the remote workers, I think it's about 900. So it definitely was a sound investment. I mean, we have a great location, great neighbors that keep an eye on stuff. And one of them says, we'd love to buy your backyard. So there's just so much growth going on and
Just the backyard.
yeah, people like overbuild on their lot so they have no yard. And the sweet thing about our
Oh,
house was it has such a good sized yard and it's sunny in Seattle like over 70 days in the summertime. So the yard space is great, it's a very dog friendly city too. So for us, it was really, that's what really attracted us to the house, being close to the beach, the yard. And, it was recently updated when we got it.
Is the whole yard thing, is that because ADUs are so popular up there? So they'll build a
It,
second house basically?
It wasn't then. Just for whatever reason, the style of their house was very long. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I think their house was remodeled and it doesn't seem like it fits the original style of
mhm.
that street. So yeah, they picked square footage indoor over green space, but yeah, that land is very, very valuable. I'd love us to keep it forever if we can.
Yeah. Okay. So your timeline was you bought the house in Madison. What was that?
That was
2013, you
20,
said?
so Wisconsin, sorry, North Carolina was 2013.
Oh, North Carolina. Okay.
And then, Seattle was 2016. And then we bought our next property in 2020, which was in Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And sorry, North Carolina, I forgot. We bought another North Carolina in 2020. That was just before the pandemic. So it was we closed in April, so maybe it was during. We closed in April on another townhome and rented that out. And then our next property that we got was in 2022. So we ended up selling one of our North Carolina ones and we bought a lake, I don't know if you guys know Lake Monona in Madison. It's off of Lake Monona Bay. And this house we bought, and this was the mindset of we are going to like invest. We're buying the property, invest and rent. That one, I was talking about that one is also a 3 bedroom, one bath, like our other one in Seattle, but this one costs $300,000. So I'm going to call it's got a lake view. So it's, there's a railroad track behind it, but it's lake. You can see the lake. There's nothing between us and the lake. And it's, just a great location. And that one we do midterm rentals because Madison does not allow short-term rentals unless you like live in the home, which it's to keep the housing costs reasonable, which I totally support. And we go to Wisconsin every summer, and so we're able to use that house as well. And then we do like furnish finder, so we rent it to doctors, we rent it to people who are sold a house, need to maybe there's a delay in their new construction. I've had a few physicians that were just like locum tenants. Locum tenants? Is that, how do you say that,
Mhm.
Josh? Okay.
Yep, that's right.
Very few nurses, but it's dog friendly. It's got a yard, and that one's our best producing house by far. So that mortgage is like $1,800, and we've gotten as much as $4,200 a month with a furnished rental. And so that one, I mean, we're covering utilities, and we had to furnish it, but that one is like appreciated well, and it's a fun one too because we get to go and stay there, and the best neighbors also there. I think Wisconsin people are a lot more friendlier. This one's not trying to buy our land, so it's like, but the neighbors come over and say hi and check in. And at first they're like, "Who's this crazy person who bought overpaid for this house?" And now they're like, "Oh, let's check it out. You've done such a great job with it. Here's some pie. Like, here's some watermelon." It's really great to be back in the Midwest when we visit that property.
I tease Josh a lot about Wisconsin, but I grew up in California, and Wisconsin was like, if I was ever making fun of another state or people from another state, my default was Wisconsin. And then, so of course, karma would have it, now I end up marrying a girl whose family's all from Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So now I'm heavily tied to Wisconsin, and I actually love Wisconsin. I think
and my husband's family's all from Wisconsin, so he's got lots of family when we go there. I don't have family there anymore, but I still love going back. The university, the lake life, I know there's just a lot of cool stuff.
So the furnish finder thing. So Josh, kind of a roundabout way, Josh bought a duplex, ended up being a little work. We ended up doing this thing. So now it's like in the company.
Now that it's as clear as mud, that's not a great explanation.
Josh bought a duplex. Him and his wife bought a duplex as like an investment property. The management became a little more difficult than, I'll let you tell it since it was your property.
I mean, so it's a half a mile from Lambeau. I bought it to be a short-term rental. Less than a month after I purchased it, the city ordinance said it has to be 7 days or more. It became a little bit more work than I expected. I was like, oh, it's really close to Lambeau. Who doesn't want to stay here? Well, it turns out not that many people wanted to stay there.
Oh, no.
So anyway, it turned out being a lot more, and I could have fixed it up to make it like a little nicer. It was a medium niceness.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, bottom line is it took a lot more work than I expected. I thought it was going to be easy to rent it out. I thought I was going to make a lot of money because of the location, and it was not all as easy as I expected. Anyway, long story short, I asked Colin to help me out, and I just sold it. I sold it to our main company.
Yeah. All right.
But
at cost.
But now the question I have is, once we took over, so we had this thing of like, okay, you can't Airbnb it because the law has changed. So now that it was like no short-term rentals. So we were looking at Furnish Finders, and I had it on Furnish Finder for a while, but looking at other furnished rentals in the area, I didn't think we could get significantly more than we could get just renting it out long-term furnished. So that's what we ended up doing.
And but I think that's a smart choice for you guys. Like, yeah, if it's not a huge spread, there's no reason you should work that hard.
Yeah. So, and it worked out. I think initially we were having trouble because nobody wanted to rent it long-term furnished. So then it was like, okay, what are we going to do with all this furniture? And then we
once you have it furnished, that's a real,
It ended up working out. We got somebody in there to rent it furnished for pretty much the price that we had it listed for on Furnish Finder. But in your case with this one that you have in Madison, if you were to rent that out furnished monthly, like long-term, what could you get compared to what you're getting for it with the Furnish Finder?
So we use, and I kind of use, like, we do have it on Airbnb, but it's for 30 days. So I call it, when I say like medium term rental, I did start with Furnish Finder. I looked at unfurnished long term when we were like buying it. I was like, okay, how much can we get for similar homes? And maybe we'd be just breaking even with our mortgage, like unfurnished long term rental. We have had some people stay a year with it furnished, and that one was a physician staff company that paid us $3,500 a month. And so the thing about certain markets is, like, it's not attracting tourists necessarily. It's attracting people who are there for work. But I've gotten people who are like solar farmers, which I didn't know that was big, that stayed there a few months. people who are coming to do like artists who are doing performances at the Overture might be there for like a couple months or, 6 weeks